It's another Monday afternoon. We're here with Lloyd Brown, Refined Completions. What's going on, Lloyd?
Man, another day in paradise. It's a dynamic world and that we live in. So what's going on?
Yeah. Well, today's topic I'm looking forward to, in the things that people need to do to be successful, I think are a lot of times I'll say you need to just be persistent. Don't quit. But it's the little things that add up day after day, the compounding effects, and there's a big compounding effect with the refined way. So let's talk about it and tell me, you've mentioned that a bunch of times in our conversations. Why is that important to you?
Well, I love Warren Buffett when he talks about the law of compounding investment. He never looked to make a lot of home runs. He just looked to make a base hit every day, right? Just small amounts of progression. And that's one thing that chasing a one-size-fits-all solution does not end up what I've learned over all the years. There's no such thing, number one. Number two is there's always a trade-off. That if you're looking for you're not looking at the complexity of the situation. And the way that you win in the compounding effect is you cover as many different parts of the equation that you can. You learn how to create a known. And, that's what Warren has done in his investing model. He has certain boundaries and parameters that he measures before he makes an investment. Well, the same thing, the refined process is understanding what are the boundaries that the geology presents to us or what does it like or not like, and having the ability to give us our hydrocarbon back over a very long period of time. And so that's one part of the compounding effect is if you maintain the stability of the geology, you give it the best opportunity to release that hydrocarbon over time. But in doing that, by mitigating the disruption from fracking, one of the compounding values is your well will make less carbon dioxide gas for the life of the well. Because one of the things that we learned is if you never turn on the catalytic part of that disruptive, then the geology will never start basically degrading itself and creating CO2 over its life. If you don't stop that, you have compounding in the other direction. You're going to make it every day for the life of the well. H2S is the same thing from the degradation of pyrite. So when we start looking at the law of compounding, okay, so you don't make CO2. What's the benefit of that? The long-term compounding benefit is multi-factors. So first one is you don't have corrosion from dissolved CO2, which drives the pH down. And for everybody out there, the best example of that is a Coca-Cola or a Sprite, any carbonated beverage. All that CO2 that's in there, when you first pop the top, if you put a pH strip in there, it's going to give you a pH of less than 1. It's carbonic acid. That's why it burns when you take that first sip. And as the gas comes out, the pH is coming up and you're like, oh, that thing's flat. Well, it's flat because all the CO2's effervesced out of it. Same thing in an oil well. If you don't get it, it's going to be flat. It's not going to be corrosive. It's not going to burn the internals of the well. And so you don't lose metal and you don't have to replace those parts. It also, when you see it effervesce, it leaves behind and or converts, and it will make a scale. So when the pH, the solubility of material in the water, when pH goes up, the solubility goes down. And so you don't form scale either when you don't have these severe swings. And so those are two compounding effects, that there's less corrosion, there's less scale. for the life of the well. Well, then the third one is, okay, we don't have to remove the CO2 and the H2S from the gas stream. Companies that transport oil and gas, that buy oil and gas from operators, they deduct a charge. They put a charge to the removal of CO2 and the removal of H2S. That if it never stops, you have the compounding benefit of never having that operating cost. So there's 3 compounding direct impacts that you have right there for the life of the well by using our process.
So we're releasing more hydrocarbon.
And that's the bonus.
Yeah.
By controlling those things, you give the ability of the well, and we call it mobility. You give the mobility of the hydrocarbon in the well the greatest opportunity to, I don't want to call it drain, but allow the migration of all of that oil that's in those pore throats to get into your well and be brought out and sold.
So we're getting more hydrocarbon. We're reducing maintenance. We're reducing costs downstream from CO2 being extracted.
And H2S, yep.
And H2S. And the other one, what's the one I left out?
Well, you talked about corrosion and scale in the well bore. Plus, you make more hydrocarbon over the life of the well. So we've got to be, we're truth tellers here, right? So one of the things that happens in our process is we make more water. So there's going to be a compounding effect. Our wells make more water, which means more operating costs when it comes to the water. The good news is the offset of all these others more than covers the increase in the cost of the water. Then it gives us a secondary benefit because we have our produced water over time actually is cleaner because of our process and is easier to recycle. And so that's an over time benefit that also reduces the cost of recycling, because you have to use different chemistries to get that water prepared, filtration, all kinds of things to have it ready to be reused in the fracking process. And so that's a compounding benefit. And getting more water out of the well, historically, because we've been disposing of a lot of that water, but by making a plan, you have more water to reuse, and therefore you can minimize or mitigate the impact of the use of fresh water. So from an environmental standpoint, you end up having more of a resource there as well that you have to plan around. Let's just be quite frank about that. But it gives you the opportunity to do that because you become more predictable across all fronts.
So the refined process, you're impacting improvements and not just birthing the well, but then running the well as well. You're improving operating processes, right?
Correct. And we're helping become predictable of what to expect. There's so many tests that are done by different companies, and they're good. Some of them are really good tests, but they're not predictors of performance. And that's the other part of our process is we have a predictor of, did we keep that process, the degradation process, from starting? We absolutely measure that. And then secondarily, we have the ability to measure how much hydrocarbon is available in that geology to get, and the type of hydrocarbon to get out. So there's all of these compounding metrics that we're able to predict. And because of that, that goes into the ability to prescribe the best processes. And part of that process is chemistry that helps us have dynamic equilibrium and keep that well producing at the lowest operating cost possible, all the while making more oil and gas. And, and I wish we could figure out how to not get all that water back, because a lot of folks would go, man, that would be really beneficial. But when you think about it, if that water's staying in the geology, it's a block. And the more it stays there, it compounds negatively. There's only one unconventional geology that I know that's not the case, and that's the Marcellus. It's in Ohio. And that geology, because we understand it really well, you want the water to stay in there because it's what's called a hydrophobic geology. It's older, very mature. The hydrocarbon, it's very uniform. And when you let the water stay in that geology, man, you make more of the hydrocarbon, which it looks like kerosene, straight run diesel. It's a beautiful product that they have out there, but it's a very unique and rare environment. So it's, again, the science, the process is always knowing the geology, what you need to do to it to enhance and give it the ability to produce the most oil and gas over time with the lowest consequence. And all of that gives you a compounding known return. And, right now, I don't know if you're aware, but yesterday, OPEC Plus said, hey, we're going to increase and put another 135,000 barrels of production back into the market. And article in Wall Street Journal was talking about, we're seeing really a suppressed, reduced price as an industry. And a lot of us in the industry were very supportive of President Trump. The environmental things that are the restrictions that the environmentalists have put on pipelines and the ability for us to get the product to the market and really impact the world, like for natural gas products, those things he's really doing a great job on. And he's trying to help the American consumer by having lower total cost. There's a real balance for us. But as an industry, we can't control that. The only thing we can control is our input cost and then the predictability of it. And that's where having a predictable rate of return over time helps you minimize and mitigate the unseen environment, both good and bad, in the price of hydrocarbon.
So it's preventing these surprises. Or, I was thinking about while you're talking about the water, even though you're producing more water in this way, but in your process, the water is your finger on the pulse. That's how you're monitoring the health of the well.
Absolutely.
So that's even though maybe traditionally it's looked as a negative, but in the refined process, it's actually a positive.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, but our understanding of the law of equilibrium and the degradation from that water staying in the geology that we put there. And the fact of the matter is, Steve, so we're getting back the water that we put into the well.
Yeah.
Like 20 million gallons. The other side of the equation is now there is old seawater. It's many times referred to as evaporite or Conette water. That water that we're getting out is coming along with the oil that's in place. That oil and water is trapped in that rock right next to each other. And so when you're getting that water out, you're getting the oil with it. If you leave that water in, the oil stays in. And so it's, you got to have them. You got to have them there. So that's understanding all of those, let's use the word compounding issues again.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, that's the beauty of it. It's predictable. It's a natural law. And where we can impact natural laws by understanding them really well, we get the benefits of the law of natural compounding.
Just, as you've come along over the years and really zeroed in on your refined process, how does it feel to see that you have this idea, you have these results, and then you have this patent, and now you have companies that are starting to really see the process as a positive and adopt it. How does that feel?
It's there was a season in my life where I would have been euphoric about it. And it doesn't make me satisfied that it's that people are starting to clients are starting to say yes, and they're seeing the benefits of it, and we're seeing that come along. The most rewarding part about it is the validation of the science and really seeing it work in action. There's a lot of patents out there that aren't worth nothing. I mean, we had one years ago where we were removing sulfate out of produced water, and we thought we had the end all for frack water. We didn't know what we didn't know. That patent's not worth anything today. It has to create that benefit, but that's the real satisfaction, and it drives you even to understand it more. So it's like fuel on my soul and my partner Jeff and our teams. It's like it's energizing us to know that we have something that truly is going to change our industry.
I imagine it's fulfilling for your team to bring something and work with your customers or your clients, your partners, and have this unified vision for a really good, a really great well. I mean, that's everybody probably really wants to get a good well going, and that's hard to do. And it's kind of nice to be that. I can imagine working, if I was working on your team and working with a company that appreciated it, that you're producing a really great well. That must be very fulfilling.
It is. And, again, everybody needs time, Steve, we can't be in a hurry about this. And I think that's the other part of it is just realizing that every day we're learning, that we're getting better, that we're becoming more predictable, that, and I think the other part of it is going, hey, don't screw this up. Take your time, really, make sure that you're listening, learning every day. Those are all of the feelings that I have.
Mm-hmm. When you think about this compounding process, the silver bullet that you were talking about, or the one size fits all solution, that means a quick hit. That means let's just get her done. But the compounding effects means you're doing these little things very consistently over a long period of time, and you get a bigger reward if you can be patient and work the process, right?
That's right. Absolutely. And that's even like, the commitment that we have to collect water analysis on these wells for at least a year, because we're learning from what the fluid that it's giving up over time. And, so this is not, a short-term complete the well, cash your check and say, hey, thanks, see you later. No,
Mm-hmm.
This is about long-term relationship with that well that's utilized the process, because there's going to be days that we don't get it right, and we've got to understand it. There's going to be inclusions that we see, or that we, we predicted one event and it didn't happen. And those are, we gotta be really, we've got to be good stewards over time.
Yeah.
It's like we have the tips process in the company, and our team, when they built what the tips process is, tips starts with trust. So it refined we hand out coins to our team. People that are highly trustworthy, they get a coin for that. People that are highly innovative, that help us figure out how to deliver our services and that we provide at a much higher level, that's they're innovative. And then we've got so many team members that when they go on the job, they're doing everything with purpose. They have high intent. So those folks, they get a coin for being purposeful. And then finally, stewardship. As we care for each other, care for others, care for our company, their company, and how we treat each other, that's great stewardship. And that's what TIP stands for. When you look at all of those together, it really is a compounding formula. And so again, that's how, those are all the things that are in my mind as we're going through this process.
Mm-hmm.
We make sure every day we're living this TIPS life.
That stewardship, when you're taking those, measuring the water samples or keeping track of all those water, you're collecting a lot of data that's going into your AI data set as well.
That's right. And statistics get a lot better with the higher number in,
Mm-hmm.
little n in the bottom. And yeah, we're in the hundreds of thousands of water analysis that we've done over the years, and we're building on that all the time. And we're able to go back and utilize AI to start looking for, are we missing anything when it comes to, are there other components in that water that are telling us something that we don't see?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. No, I was just thinking how that stewardship is adding on to that database, and then all that data is going to reveal other insights that would be very valuable, and that wouldn't come unless you had that stewardship mindset.
That's right. That's right.
Well, what's any other point you want to make before we wrap this up, Lloyd?
No, Steve, I mean, really, what I hope everybody that listens and or watches what we're doing understands that it all begins with trusting the process. And that's the opposite of believing in a one-shot solution.
Mm-hmm. When you were explaining that, in my head was that Billy Bean, he was talking to that kid that was keeping all the data, and they're wanting to recruit these guys that hit home runs, and the kid was saying, no, you just want to make base hits.
That's right.
And
it's one of my all-time favorite movies.
But that's the same thinking here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, good conversation, Lloyd. Let's say that I'm listening to you, and I want to start bouncing some ideas off some wells that I have in mind. Where should I start?
Lloyd.Brown at refinedcompletions.com. Or hit me up through LinkedIn or X or YouTube, any of the platforms that we're coming to you from, and or our website. Our website has contact us, and we'll definitely get back in touch.
Yeah. So that's refinedcompletions.com. You can check it out, get some information, put in your information. Lloyd's always available. That's what he's good at.
That's right.
All right. Another great episode of Why Wells Fail. Lloyd Brown, always learn a lot. Here I am. I'm just a Texas kid learning all about oil wells now. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll see you next week on another episode of Why Wells Fail.